7 in the Soccology book is player premium. So this is a chapter which, it's probably the one I'm most passionate about, but it blew my mind when I came out of football and I set up a company in education and I learned about pupil premium, which is a fund. Those who work in education will know about this. It's a fund that schools get for people who are struggling academically or, behaviourally. They're seen as vulnerable or at risk. Schools can get, I think it's around £3 to £4 grand per student, if they're on free school meals. So schools get thousands upon thousands for these students. And on their website, they've actually got to say how they spend the money. So sometimes you might see a school say, we got a tutor, we paid this amount for the tutor, etc. But what I found so interesting was that football has a load of students that are from a pupil premium background and they don't get this extra support. Football's like, you know what, you've got one more chance, or you're out. And that's how they dealt with it. And I thought, wow, there's obviously a need because the government are spending millions per year on pupil premium fund, but there's no player premium. And I don't mean that in terms of money, but in terms of an approach. And a lot of the time, these are people that, they might be suffering trauma and it's playing out in behaviour. And they're from low-income backgrounds. So in player premium, I highlight this, but I come from the aspect of, because it's a very wide conversation, honing in on what football benefits from and looking at, in a way, the toughest areas and gang culture. So I start by talking about how one of my friends pulled a gun on one of my other friends and how it was such a normal part of the lifestyle that it wasn't even a big deal. So just to kind of give you an aspect and insight of what young people, young players, the environment they're coming from, and that when you get someone shouting at you in your face, that yeah, you might get a change in body language, or maybe someone biting back because of, in a way, that's what they've had to do to survive. And I then speak to players who are from that background that people might not even realise, they might not even know about. So someone like Bradley Wright Phillips. I spoke to Moses Acha Cody. So Moses is someone who, he's known for bringing a knife out and going for a player when he was at Millwall. But when you read about his story in this book, it's full of neglect and abandonment and all this other stuff. And sometimes people say, oh, you know what, you're making excuses. But I think for me, that's probably the most powerful story in this book. So I'm not going to spoil it and read it for you. And it is long, but you need to read it. Trust me. But just to kind of give you just a little bit of insight, he came to this country as a 7-year-old from Nigeria. When he landed here, his brother went to prison, so he was in a country where he knew no one. By the time he was 9, he was earning £250 a week on the streets. By 13, kicked out of school, went into train at Millwall full-time. By 15, he was playing first-team football for Millwall and playing for England. And then trouble started to happen. And then at one stage, he had Bayern Munich and Barcelona that wanted him as well. But you can read that and find out. And then we spoke. Then in this chapter, I look at being brought up in certain areas. Obviously, there's people that have suppressed emotions and how it plays out. But Gökhan Inler shared a story where he said, when I was about 15 years old, I intercepted the ball aggressively in a very difficult one-on-one situation on the pitch. Everyone was so impressed. I had no idea that I could use my use my aggression to be successful in football. Since that day, I have channeled my aggression through my performances on the pitch to achieve success, express myself and feel good. So I think this is really important. For me, I feel the emotion of anger gets mismarketed massively in life. So to have something where you can utilize it, especially if you've got a build up of it, because we feel angry or we have aggression anyway. But when you come from a certain background, you've got this pent up, you suppress this aggression. You need to unleash. So football gives that to many people. I also draw on comparisons with Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson's story I use as a great example of attachment theory, because literally not feeling safe, having no one to attach to from childhood, having his coach, attaching to his coach, being successful, coach dying, and then regressing back to what he was before. So even though I'm moving this way, I should be doing that. So he regresses back to childhood as a man, and all the things he was doing. So he was taking drugs and breaking into homes at 10 and 11. So even though he wasn't breaking into homes and stuff, he started to take drugs again. He wasn't training, and that was purely because he lost his attachment. So, and I say this because, again, coaches can sometimes, traditionally, and I know it still happens now, but not as much, but they could easily say, you know what, you. But when someone signs at a club, it becomes a relationship. So it's like, how can we make this work? And you have to be honest with yourself and say if you're willing to invest the emotional currency that's required. Because it might be a case of, okay, this player has a certain level of need, but my circumstance doesn't allow that because, for example, I might not be in the job within a few months, or, do you know what, I just don't want to. But at least you're being honest to yourself, and then you can save your time and the player's time. But if you choose to get into that relationship, it becomes a relationship. Yeah, and I share a story about a player that I played with that's in prison up to this day. There's players that I know who are in prison for armed robbery. Yeah. So with regards to player premium, that is something that, as I said, that's something that's really close to my heart, purely based on where I grew up. I grew up around gangs with my friends. All my friends were in gangs. And when I work at clubs or when I work in schools, and I always say that it's not so much a choice. I grew up with my classmates, my teammates, my mum's friends' sons. So I was surrounded by it. I'm not going to go into why I didn't follow down that route, but the bottom line is that people are a victim of their circumstance, and football benefits from that. They have satellite centres in those areas, so it's really important. It's great that, you know, there's this opportunity of football, but it's really important that we acknowledge the relationship and the responsibility from both parts.